20 square miles, smaller than Manhattan. No oil, no gold, no rivers, not even a lake. Bermuda has almost nothing a place needs to build wealth. And yet this isolated reef in the middle of the North Atlantic became one of the richest territories on Earth. It started with a shipwreck and a group of castaways who were never supposed to stay. 4 centuries later, the island underwrites catastrophe risk for half a continent. How Bermuda became so rich from so little is a story that begins with a hurricane in 1609. On a July morning in 1609, the Sea Venture, a ship carrying English colonists bound for Jamestown, was caught in a hurricane somewhere in the wild North Atlantic. William Strachey, who survived the ordeal, described it as a most dreadful tempest. The storm drove the vessel off course, battering it for days until on July 23rd, the ship slammed onto the shallow reefs of an uncharted island chain. The place was Bermuda, a cluster of low, green islands just over 20 square miles in total, some 650 miles from the nearest mainland. Nearly 150 men, women, and children staggered ashore. There were no rivers, no lakes, and no sign of any other people. No gold or oil gleamed beneath the thin limestone soil. What greeted them instead was silence, broken only by the wind and the surf. The survivors faced a single urgent question. Could this isolated patch of land keep them alive? They began to explore. Pools of fresh water were found, hidden in the porous rock. Wild hogs, descendants of animals left by earlier Spanish ships, roamed the thickets. The air was thick with the scent of cedar, a tree that would soon prove vital. With no way to signal for help and no hope of rescue, the castaways set to work. Over the next 10 months, they felled Bermuda cedar and scavenged the Sea Venture's remains, fashioning 2 new vessels, the Deliverance and the Patience. The group's survival depended on their ability to improvise, using only what the island provided and what little they had salvaged from the wreck. When the Deliverance and Patience finally sailed for Virginia, the accidental settlement of Bermuda had already demonstrated something remarkable. Even on a barren, storm-battered reef, resourcefulness could carve out the beginnings of a new society. Formal colonization arrived in 1612, when the Virginia Company dispatched 60 settlers under the command of Sir Richard Moore. Their destination was St. George's, a rocky peninsula chosen for its sheltered harbor and defensible position. This small town became the first permanent English settlement on Bermuda, and, for over 2 centuries, the island's capital. Its narrow, winding lanes, Featherbed Alley and Shinbone Alley among them, still follow the irregular patterns set down by early colonists, a living map of 17th century planning. Stone houses and public buildings rose quickly, built to withstand Atlantic storms and the test of time. St. Peter's Church, established in 1612 and rebuilt in stone by 1826, stands at the heart of St. George's. It is widely recognized as the oldest Anglican church outside the British Isles and the oldest Protestant church in continuous use in the New World. The church's simple lines and weathered graveyard anchor the town's sense of continuity, linking generations of Bermudians to their earliest days. By 1620, Bermuda's House of Assembly convened for the first time, launching a tradition of self-government that has continued unbroken for over 4 centuries. Today, Bermuda is the oldest continuously self-governing British overseas territory. The United Kingdom retains responsibility for defense and foreign affairs, but Bermudians have long managed their own internal affairs through an elected parliament. St. George's, with its UNESCO World Heritage status, preserves not just buildings but the institutions and civic life that have shaped Bermuda's unique identity. Salt spray and cedar scent once filled the harbors of Bermuda, where survival meant turning outward to the sea. The island's thin, stony soil left little room for crops or cattle, so Bermudians built their fortunes on water. Native Bermuda cedar, prized for its strength and resistance to rot, became the backbone of a shipbuilding industry that reached across the Atlantic. Shipwrights carved sleek sloops from the local wood, vessels so fast and nimble they could outpace storms and rivals alike. These ships, with their sharp lines and triangular sails, carried salt, goods, and hope to distant ports. Salt itself shaped the rhythm of island life. Each year, Bermudian crews sailed south to the Turks Islands, raking salt from shallow pans under a burning sun. Salt was more than seasoning. It preserved meat and fish for ships and distant colonies, earning its nickname, white gold. The return journey brought barrels of salt and sometimes timber for yet more sloops, binding shipbuilding and salt trading in a single economic chain. When wars flared in Europe, the same cedar sloops became privateers, chasing enemy ships under government license. A letter of marque turned a merchantman into a predator, and prize money flowed back to the island's merchants and shipyards. But beneath this maritime success lay a bitter truth. Enslaved Africans, brought to Bermuda in growing numbers from the 17th century onward, worked as carpenters, caulkers, sailors, and salt rakers. Their labor powered the shipyards and salt pans, and their skills made the island's prosperity possible. Slavery ran through every layer of the colonial economy, from the decks of the sloops to the kitchens and fields ashore. Freedom came only in 1834, when emancipation ended legal bondage, though its legacy lingered for generations. Yet from this hardship, a unique cultural inheritance survived. The Gambi tradition, masked dancers in tall, feathered headdresses, moving to the pulse of drums, blends West African rhythm, Caribbean color, Native American symbols, and echoes of British military parades. Once suppressed by colonial laws that feared black gatherings, Gambi troops now fill Bermuda's streets on Bermuda Day and Boxing Day, their swirling dances honoring ancestors who endured and adapted. The Gambi is both memory and celebration, a living link between the island's maritime past and its resilient, creative present. Steamships began arriving from New York and Halifax in the 1800s, their decks crowded with travelers eager to escape northern winters. Bermuda's mild climate and gentle breezes were soon marketed as a natural remedy, a place where wealthy British and American visitors could rest, recover, and socialize far from city smoke and snow. Steamship companies shifted their business from ferrying cargo to selling vacation passages, and the island's reputation as a healthful retreat took hold. By the late 19th century, grand hotels like the Hamilton Princess and the Southampton Princess rose along the coast, their wide verandas and manicured lawns designed for leisure. Pastel-painted houses, white limestone roofs, and the famous pink sand beaches became the visual shorthand for Bermuda's appeal. Tourism grew steadily. By the 1930s, annual visitor numbers approached 25,000, and after World War II, the flow turned into a flood. In 1957, Bermuda welcomed over 100,000 tourists in a single year, with nearly all arrivals traveling from North America. Magazine ads and travel posters painted the island as a pastel paradise promising sun, sea, and colonial charm. The visitor economy generated jobs in hotels, restaurants, and transport, bringing new prosperity and a sense of global visibility. Yet this success came with a catch. The island's fortunes now rose and fell with the whims of distant travelers and the health of foreign economies. Bermuda's beauty was its main asset, but its dependence on outside demand would shape every chapter that followed. For most of the 20th century, Bermuda's economy leaned on a reliable anchor, the presence of British and American military installations. The Royal Naval Dockyard, once the largest fortification outside the UK, dominated the island's west end. Across the island, American bases, built under World War II agreements, brought a steady stream of jobs connected to docks, aviation, shipping, and construction. For generations, these facilities underwrote a local economy that had already shifted away from agriculture and shipbuilding. Wages, contracts, and support services rippled through Bermudian households, smoothing out the volatility of tourism and trade. But the end of the Cold War brought a sudden reckoning. Beginning in the late 1980s and accelerating through the 1990s, military planners in London and Washington ordered the closure of base after base. The Royal Naval Dockyard ceased operations as a military site. The U.S. Navy and Air Force packed up their installations, including Kindley Field, which had doubled as the island's main airport. Within a few years, thousands of military-linked jobs vanished. For Bermudians, the change felt abrupt. Almost overnight, a pillar of the local economy was gone. Yet even as the last uniformed personnel departed, a new foundation was already being poured. The Bermuda Monetary Authority, established in 1969, took on the role of financial regulator. Just as the island introduced its own currency, the Bermudian dollar, launched in 1970 and pegged 1-to-1 with the US dollar, offered the kind of exchange rate stability that international business demands. Government revenue shifted away from direct corporate income tax, relying instead on payroll taxes, customs duties, and indirect levies. For qualifying offshore companies, the absence of a corporate income tax, paired with a stable regulatory environment, created conditions that attracted global insurers and financial firms. These rules were not just about low taxes, but about predictability, transparency, and the ability to operate in a tightly managed legal framework. Even as international pressure grows for global minimum tax standards, Bermuda's government continues to adjust its laws, balancing outside demands with the need to preserve its financial sector's competitive edge. The military economy faded, but a new model, rooted in finance, regulation, and global connectivity, was already taking hold. A hurricane sweeps toward Florida's coast. Insurance companies brace for the aftermath, knowing that a single storm can trigger billions in claims, far more than any one firm can safely absorb. The solution is reinsurance. Insurance for insurers. In this system, a homeowner in Miami pays her premium to a local insurer, who then pays part of that premium to a reinsurer based in Hamilton, Bermuda. If a hurricane's destruction pushes claims above a set threshold, the Bermudian reinsurer steps in, supplying the capital to cover the excess. This chain, policyholder to insurer to reinsurer, spreads risk across continents, making Bermuda a global hub for catastrophic risk. Bermuda's reinsurers don't just cover hurricanes. They take on California earthquakes, European windstorms, Japanese typhoons, any event that could overwhelm a single company or country. In 2022, more than $100 billion in gross written premiums flowed through Bermuda's insurance and reinsurance sector, according to the Bermuda Monetary Authority. The 5 largest reinsurance groups operating from the island held over $150 billion in surplus that year, enough to respond to a series of record-breaking disasters. This isn't just a matter of moving money. Over decades, Bermuda has developed a dense professional ecosystem. Specialist lawyers draft intricate contracts, accountants audit billions in flows, actuaries model rare event probabilities, and brokers connect clients from every continent. The island's legal certainty, technical expertise, and access to global capital markets have made it the preferred jurisdiction for risk transfer, even as other low-tax destinations compete for a share of the market. Bermuda's regulatory system is recognized by international rating agencies, adding another layer of trust for global partners. Bermuda's influence extends into captive insurance, a model where corporations set up their own insurance companies, often on the island, to cover select risks. These captives handle everything from product liability to employee health plans, giving multinational firms control and flexibility beyond what the standard market offers. As of 2022, Bermuda hosted more than 1,200 licensed insurers and reinsurers, a figure confirmed by the Bermuda Insurance Commission, and placing the island among the top 3 global reinsurance markets by premium volume. On the captive side, Bermuda ranks second worldwide, managing billions in corporate assets and supporting a steady stream of high-skilled jobs. When traditional reinsurance capacity is stretched, Bermuda entities turn to catastrophe bonds and sidecar vehicles. These structures invite global investors, pension funds in Canada, hedge funds in Singapore, to share in hurricane or earthquake risk. If disaster doesn't strike, investors earn returns. If it does, they absorb losses. In 2022, the global market for insurance-linked securities, much of it routed through Bermuda, exceeded $100 billion in outstanding risk, according to OECD and independent market trackers. International business dominates Bermuda's economy, accounting for about 70% of total output in 2022. Yet the flow of global premiums into the island does not mean that all that money stays in Bermuda. Much is paid out in claims, invested abroad, or distributed to shareholders worldwide. Locally, the impact is concentrated in high-skilled jobs, professional services, and government revenue from payroll taxes, fees, and indirect levies. Persistent questions remain about how much of the sector's wealth supports public services or broad prosperity, especially as international rules evolve and scrutiny of offshore finance intensifies. Bermuda's low-tax environment is just one reason for its appeal. The real draw lies in its legal infrastructure, regulatory credibility, and ability to connect risk capital with global needs. Registering a company in Bermuda is not the same as building a trusted financial service that can withstand the world's biggest disasters. Yet vulnerabilities persist. Catastrophe risk is growing, fueled by climate change and rising asset values in coastal cities. A cluster of mega disasters could strain even the deepest reserves. International tax reforms, such as the OECD's global minimum tax, threaten to erode Bermuda's competitive edge. Heavy dependence on one sector leaves the island exposed to regulatory shifts, reputational shocks, and the unpredictable nature of global finance. Bermuda's wealth is built not on natural resources, but on a web of contracts, expertise, and trust that channels the world's risks through a small patch of Atlantic limestone. Draw a line from Bermuda to Miami and Puerto Rico, and you have the rough boundaries of the so-called Bermuda Triangle, a patch of Atlantic Ocean made famous by stories of vanishing ships and planes. For decades, books and television specials have claimed that this region swallows vessels without a trace, fueling a global fascination with the island's supposed mysteries. Yet when insurance companies like Lloyd's of London and the U.S. Coast Guard examined the data, they found no higher rate of disappearances here than anywhere else with similar traffic. Most incidents had ordinary explanations or occurred outside the triangle's lines. Still, the legend persists, making Bermuda a household name far beyond its actual shores, a cultural myth that endures even as the evidence points to nothing supernatural at all. In June 2017, the world's oldest international sporting trophy arrived in Bermuda. The 35th America's Cup transformed the Great Sound into a high-speed arena, with the Royal Naval Dockyard serving as the main hub for teams and fans. This wasn't a race of wooden ships, but a showcase of hydrofoiling catamarans, sleek vessels that skimmed above the water, reaching speeds over 40 knots. Emirates Team New Zealand, led by helmsman Peter Burling, dominated the series and defeated the American defenders Oracle Team USA by 7 races to 1. The event drew global attention to Bermuda's sailing culture, bringing thousands of visitors and broadcasting the island's dramatic scenery and maritime prowess to millions around the world. By the early 1620s, the Bermuda cahao, a small, nocturnal seabird, had vanished from sight, hunted for food, and pushed out by pigs and rats brought by settlers. For more than 3 centuries, it was believed lost forever. Then, in 1951, a team led by David Wingate and Louis Mowbray found 18 breeding pairs clinging to life on remote islets. Their rediscovery set off a careful rescue effort. Artificial burrows were built, predators were kept away, and every nest was watched. Thanks to ongoing government stewardship, the population now stands at over 150 breeding pairs, a fragile but real recovery for a bird once written off as extinct. Rain shapes daily life in Bermuda. Every white, stepped roof is more than a design choice. It is the island's water supply. With no rivers or lakes, homes are built to catch and channel rainfall, sending it down into storage tanks beneath the house. Daily routines depend on this careful harvesting. Every drop matters. In the kitchen, flavors speak to adaptation too. The rum swizzle, a blend of dark rum, citrus, and bitters, is poured as the island's unofficial drink. Fish chowder, rich with dark rum and sherry peppers, anchors the local table. Here, necessity and invention meet, turning scarcity into signature Bermudian tastes and traditions. A hurricane in 1609 left a shipwrecked group of colonists with nothing but what they could salvage from the sea venture and the wild land around them. Their answer to disaster was to build, to adapt, and to find certainty in an uncertain world. That same impulse runs through Bermuda's story, but the tools have changed. Where cedar timbers and hand-built sloops once meant survival, today Bermudians use contracts, actuarial tables, and regulatory codes to manage risk from hurricanes and earthquakes that strike thousands of miles away. Each era brought its own challenge. When the land offered little, the islanders turned to shipbuilding and salt trading. When global wars brought opportunity, they became privateers. Tourism flourished as the world grew smaller, but faded with changing tastes and the closure of military outposts. In every case, Bermuda's response was to build new systems, legal, financial, and cultural, that could weather the next storm. Now, the island exports certainty. Its financial sector is built on self-government, legal clarity, currency stability, and the kind of expertise that global insurers trust with billions in risk. International sailing events and the recovery of the K-House show that adaptation is ongoing, whether in sport or conservation. What began as a fight for survival has become a model for turning trust and stability into an economic engine. Bermuda's wealth comes not from what lies beneath the soil, but from what it has built above it, an economy founded on the value of institutional reliability. Today, Bermuda's greatest export is trust, built not from abundant land, but from centuries of adapting stability into wealth. As global finance grows ever more volatile, the world looks to places where rules matter and risk is managed with precision. Bermuda's story is a reminder, sometimes security itself is the rarest resource. Which fact surprised you most? Like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into how small nations build outsized economies.